Good morning. Welcome to Substitute Tuesdays. I'm Dorothy Lee, Family and Consumer Science Agent for the University of Florida, Escambia County Extension Service. And I hope your morning has gotten off to a good start. This morning we're going to talk about something very sweet. Maybe today you have plans on baking, and oftentimes when we are putting our ingredients together for baking, we may not have all the ingredients that we need. So today, our substitutes are going to be all about how sweet it is. In baking, usually a lot of different types of sugar are used, and you may not have a variety of sugar in your pantry. So making your own homemade is an excellent way to substitute for those sugars that your recipe calls for. So let's take a look at some of the different types of sugars that oftentimes are included in recipes for baking. And one is brown sugar. Oftentimes with brown sugar, there's light brown sugar, there's dark brown sugar, and so forth. If you don't have dark or light brown sugar in your pantry, you can make homemade brown sugar by adding a half a cup of white granulated sugar and a half a cup of dark brown sugar, and that will give you light brown sugar for your baking. Another thing is often there are recipes that call for honey, or maybe they call for molasses. And honey and molasses seem to be ingredients that we don't often have in our pantry. So there's some substitutes that also can be used for the honey or the molasses that are in your pantry, not in your pantry. And with honey and molasses, they're kind of interchangeable. If the recipe requires molasses, you can use honey. If the recipe requires the honey, you can use molasses, which makes it very nice in the substitution there. Another type of baking, oftentimes in icing cakes and so forth, is confectioner sugar. And with confectioner sugar and what we call icing sugar, oftentimes we may not have that in our pantry, and that also is easy to make. You just need to add a cup of white granulated sugar to a blender or a coffee grinder, or even a food processor will work, and then add 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. Blend till it's very, very fine and powdery. Confectioner sugar oftentimes is called white powdered sugar or white cooking sugar, and it's very, very fine. And so the blender or the food grinder or the processor tends to mix up those sugar molecules and makes it very fine and fluffy. Now, if you're using it for an icing, you may want to add a little bit of cream of tartar also to the mixture. That gives it a little bit of strength, and it won't break down quite so easy when you start to ice your cake. So it's very easy to make your own sugar substitutes for baking.